Hello, this is a discussion that we want to have on social mobility. In particular, we want to try to explain how people can rise from poverty to wealth and fame, and also vice versa. In doing so, we will be looking at a number of issues that we think will help us. Indeed, society has several examples of people who rose from nothing to something, and also those who are born in wealth or had wealth, but their status changed from being wealthy to paupers. These are important issues that we seek to address in this particular discussion. To help us understand this, we want to look at some issues. One is the issue about open and closed societies. Second one, we want to look at the meaning of social mobility. The third one, we want to look at the various types of social mobility. And then the last one, we want to look at what determines whether or not a person moves from a low to a higher status or from a higher to a lower status. These are the issues that we think, or we hope, at the end of the discussion will give us a lot of insight in terms of the whole issue around social mobility, with specific interest on how people can come from poverty to wealth and vice. As noted earlier, society can either be open or it can be closed, and therefore sociologists distinguish two types of systems in society. That is, the systems of stratification that makes it possible for people to move from one social status, and also those that completely make it impossible for a person to move from one social status to another. Of particular interest, we want to start with closed systems. Closed system is a system in which there is very little change, if any, in people's social position. So that if you're born poor, you're likely to remain poor, and your generation are likely to remain poor. This is because such societies do not allow people to move from one social status to another. Similarly, such societies also do not permit relationships such as marriage and intimate relationships between individuals of different levels. For instance, it does not permit marriages between rich people and poor people, or intimate relationships between rich people and poor people. And therefore, you remain and you have to engage in relationships that fall within, or rather with people within your social position. To this end, these societies develop certain rules and customs that promote what we call endogamy in many areas of socioeconomic life. Endogamy simply means the practice of engagement with individuals from the same social status. For instance, you marry a person or you develop an intimate relationship, you associate with people of the same status. It is not permitted in such societies for an individual to engage with people from other status, either lower or higher than their status. Open societies, on the contrary, allow individuals to move from one social status to another. These societies encourage individuals to work hard and to achieve things that will make them move from one social status to another. Therefore, such societies do not only permit people to move from one social status to another, but they also encourage them to not to be contented with their current social status, especially if it is a lower social status. These societies also allow relationships such as friendship and marriage to occur between individuals of different social status. So these societies that we call open societies emphasize a great deal on individuals' hard work, individuals' merit, and individuals' achievement. When you are born in such a society, it is possible for you to move from poverty to wealth, to move from a person who was never known at all to fame, and vice versa. What matters is your hard work, is your creativity and ability to work in a way that permits you to overcome challenges that normally constrain people from attaining higher goals in life. What then is the meaning of social mobility? Social mobility refers to the degree to which in any given society people are able to change from one status to another status. For instance, the movement from poverty to wealth, or the movement from being a wealthy person to a poor person. That is basically what social status is. It is also understood by other scholars as the shift in an individual's social status from one social status to another, and this can either be a status that is higher or lower than the one an individual currently has. Social mobility is considered as a key concept in determining whether inequalities or conditions that makes it hard for people to improve from one condition to another are working or they are not working. It is therefore through the aspect of social mobility that we try to interrogate what we call inequalities of condition and also inequalities of opportunity. Countries or societies that social mobility is encouraged and it is working, there is a greater likelihood that individuals will move from one status to another status, depending on either you work hard so that you rise up the ladder in terms of social status, or if you choose to be lazy or become luxurious in terms of how you use your resources, it's also possible for an individual to degenerate from a higher social status to a lower social status. There are various types of social mobility. One of them is called upward mobility. Upward mobility basically refers to an increase or upward shift in social status. For instance, being born in a poor family and through hard work, you rise up to become a rich person. That is a case of upward mobility. Society has numerous examples of people who rose from very modest or humble beginning to fame and fortune. However, when you talk about upward mobility, it is not just becoming rich and famous, but rather a change of social status. For instance, an individual who earns advanced education, maybe post-secondary education, gets a good job, or marries someone with a good income may experience upward mobility because their fortunes or their status will change from what they were before to what they are now based on attainment of good education, job promotion, or association, or being married by somebody who is famous or who is wealthy. Of course, that wealth will be transferred to that person, and in the process, the fortunes or the status of that individual changes. In that case, the person will experience upward social mobility. Then there is also what we call downward mobility. it is of course the opposite of upward mobility. This is lowering of one's social class or social status. People's social status may change or be downgraded for by a number of factors. For instance, business setbacks. If you're a successful businessman and either because of poor economic decisions, rather poor business decisions, or poor economic performance, your fortunes change and therefore you lose wealth through business. It is possible for you to come down and therefore your status will change. You can also, your social status might also come down if you were previously employed and you are no longer employed, and therefore your income streams comes down. Things that you are able to afford when you are working, you are no longer able. Places that you are able to live in when you are working, you are no longer able. And even hotels and friends that you are able to meet when you had income is now not possible. Or illness. Illness can also make somebody's social status come down, in the sense that it limits your ability to work hard. It also limits your ability to engage in productive enterprises that could give you income and therefore afford you a better social status. Sometimes we can also lose our social status through loss of political power. Politics and power in themselves are important sources of social status. When we are powerful politically, it is possible for us to access wealth, meet people who are influential, and do so many things using our political powers. However, the loss of such power might mean the opposite in terms of what we are able to do when we are politically powerful and active. And therefore, loss of political power can also bring a change of fortunes. There are several cases of former politicians who are powerful, who are wealthy, and today they are paupers, they are poor, they are beggars in society. The status they have today is not what they used to have. It's a dramatic change. They have changed their lifestyles. They have changed everything that they used to have, and therefore they are now experiencing what we call downward social mobility. Another type of social mobility is called intergenerational social mobility. It refers to the difference in social class between different generations of a family. For example, a family whose head, say the parents, belong to the upper class, may have their children now not belong to that upper class, but now in the middle class and the lower class. So therefore, the social status of parents and that of the children are different. In that case, the parental status and the offspring status are different. That difference in social status among, or rather between different generations in the same family is what we call intergenerational social mobility. But of course, sometimes this type of social status could also reflect the changes that a society is undergoing. There are also cases where somebody was born in a poor family, but through hard work, education, and other avenues, an individual achieves fame, and therefore his status becomes an improved status from the one that his or her parents had. In that case, the status of the children is superior to that of the parents or the grandparents. In that case, that individual will be experiencing what we call intergenerational social mobility. The other type of social mobility is called intra-generational mobility. It simply describes a different social class between different members of the same generation. For example, in a family, we can have siblings having different social status. There are those with advanced education, others may not have advanced education. Some could be wealthier than others. Some could have political connection, political power more than others, while others could be wealthier than others. So those differences among members of the same generation or the same family with regard to the different social status, it's what we call intra-generational social status. That is, the differences in status among people of the same generation. Another type of social mobility is called the structural mobility. This occurs when societal changes enable a whole group of people to move up or down the social ladder. It is largely attributed to changes in society as a whole and not just changes at the individual level. For instance, economic setbacks. If a society experiences economic setbacks that leads to mass unemployment among university graduates, this may lead to downward structural mobility within their rank. That is, an entire lot or a significant proportion of graduates may not have good sources of income, and therefore their status might change compared to the generation of graduates that was before them. In that case, the structural changes that they're experiencing, which in this case is economic setback or economic underperformance in a country or in society, might not make it easier for them to lead the kind of life that society expects them to live. In that case, they will be experiencing what we call structural social mobility. Of course, if there are also changes in terms of economic fortunes, that is possible to make them now earn a better of living, and it affects a significant proportion of their lot. Again, we will say that that particular group of individuals is also experiencing structural mobility, but now in this case an upward one, because their status is increasing or is superior compared to the one that their counterparts in the earlier generation. Then there's what we call horizontal mobility. It is understood as a change or a shift in religious, territorial, or political spheres without any important change in one's social status. For example, somebody can change from, say, a doctor who is a practicing who is a practitioner, might decide to leave hospital and therefore go to the university to teach. That is shifting from being a medical doctor to a university lecturer. If in terms of income the person experiences the same amount of income, then we will say that that person is experiencing a horizontal social mobility. In that case, his status has not changed as much, because the respect that he earned when he was a doctor, he is still going to earn it when he's a lecturer. The income that he used to earn when he was a doctor is also the same as the one he's earning when he's a lecturer. In that case, therefore, he has changed occupation, but his status in terms of income, in terms of prestige, in terms of power has remained what it was before. In that case, the person is said to be experiencing horizontal social mobility. I now want us to look at and have a discussion on the determinants of social mobility. What is it that determines whether you rise up or you come down in terms of social mobility, or the changes, either it is inter or intragenerational changes in terms of status? This is what I want us to pay our attention to. The first one is, of course, the individual motivation. How motivated is an individual in terms of his desire to change his fortunes? If somebody is so much determined and puts a lot of effort and hard work in whatever he's pursuing, it is possible for that person's status to change. This is particularly so in open societies where people are encouraged to work hard, and individual achievements and hard work is what matters. In that case, if you are motivated to work hard, you are likely to change your status and fortunes. Of course, the reverse is for those individuals who have no desire to work hard. They are contented with what they have, and therefore they don't feel motivated at all to put extra effort to change how they do things. Such people's social status is likely to remain, and therefore motivation is an important factor. Individuals who are self-motivated, who have the drive, who have the desire, and who have the focus to change their fortunes and to change their lives have a greater chances of experiencing a different social status compared to their counterparts who are either lazy or are contented with what they have. So the desire and the drive to move forward is an important element when it comes to social status. The other factor or determinant of social mobility is achievements and failures. Achievements simply refer to an extraordinary and unexpected performance which attracts the attention of the society with regard to that person's ability. Achievements can only affect our status if they are remarkable. For instance, a poor person who has acquired wealth through hard work. That's an important achievement. It shifts his or her status from poverty to wealth, from lack of influence to a position of influence. But failure and misdeeds can also affect social mobility, especially in terms of downward social mobility. For instance, if a famous and rich person, wealthy person, has been found to have acquired his or her wealth in a corrupt manner, then the person is taken to court, charged, and convicted, and the government or the judiciary or the government decides to take away the wealth that it was suspected to have been acquired fraudulently. That person's social status will change. And the fact that he has been convicted and found to have committed wrong against society, it's also possible some of the people that used to associate with him might also now stop associating with him. That person, if he belonged to a particular social club, like golf clubs, the membership of that golf club might seriously consider whether to continue having him or not. The person will also lose a lot of prestige and also influence from his friends. In that case, if you fail because of certain actions that are considered improper in the eyes of society, it can also change your status from being a person of higher status to a lower status. So achievements and failures are important factors that can determine the direction a particular individual status takes. Another important factor that also determines social status is education. Education helps individuals to acquire knowledge, but education is also an important gateway for occupational positions that gives us a higher prestige. Once an individual acquires or attains minimum formal education, then it is possible for that individual, if economy is working well, for that individual to be rewarded with good employment. And good employment will give this individual income that will enable him to change his status from poverty to a different status. It may not change him from being poor to a wealthy person, but at least it will enable this person to lead a decent life and completely abandon the degrading life that probably the person was in before. We've seen in many countries, especially where we had the caste system and minority groups, the use of education or promotion of formal education has in a big way enabled them to overcome poverty, overcome marginalization, and attain positions that enable them to lead a decent life and afford most of the basic needs that they require for human survival. And therefore, education is very, very key determinant of social status. Another important factor that can determine social mobility is skills and training. People who have undergone training or have acquired new skills are better placed than their counterparts who do not have a similar experience. Additional training and skills enables or facilitates the promotion of individuals in places where they work, or it enables them to acquire certain economic rewards and privileges than those who have not been trained. Therefore, when individuals are imparted with skills and training, it facilitates their improvement in terms of the position that they occupy in society. Indeed, in many places of work, there is greater emphasis on training and skills in addition to formal education. So those who are well trained or who have acquired skills that set them apart from others stand a better chance of being rewarded better, and through good reward, they stand a better chance of affording a particular lifestyle that elevates them from one social status to another. Another important determinant or factor that determines social change is migration. People normally migrate from one place to another. And in many cases, migration informed by availability of opportunities and facilities that individuals can tap into to enable them improve their social status. We have seen, for instance, people moving from poor countries to rich families with the hope of having access to job opportunities in those places. We have also seen people within the same country moving from rural areas to urban areas with the hope that they can exploit their valuable job opportunities that are available in urban areas. Such opportunities can, in a dramatic way, change the status and fortunes of such individuals. We've seen, for instance, in Kenya, the desire by most people to migrate to the Gulf, the Middle East, despite so many reports that those who have migrated there previously some of them have never received good treatment. But the desire and the determination to change status is perhaps what is making people not feel discouraged by migrating to these places. And therefore, migration, especially from an area with lesser opportunities and facilities to an area with great opportunities and facilities, can be an important factor that also influences social mobility. Another important factor also that determines social mobility is legislation. Governments around the world have come up with laws to address what they call historical marginalization. There are people that have been historically marginalized, and therefore they are in statuses that may not be possible to change and without external intervention. In such cases, governments around the world normally come up with legislations that are designed to empower these individuals with the hope that such empowerment will result in an improved social status. We have seen governments coming up with laws that encourages education of minority groups and previously marginalized groups, girls or women, by, for instance, in Kenya, lowering the entry point, the entry marks or entry grade for girls from marginalized backgrounds to colleges and universities. We have also seen even other countries such as India, where they have come up with certain legislations that have enhanced the status of women by according them equal rights to property inheritance. Similar legislations have also been enacted in countries such as America, the US, and the wider Americas that aim at improving social mobility among persons of the black race, indigenous communities, and other groups that are considered marginalized. So legislation, if properly enacted and facilitated in terms of resources and well implemented, has the potential of changing the status of individuals, especially those from minority or marginalized groups, as well as women and even persons with disability. The last factor that can also help in improving social status is what we call modernization. Modernization simply refers to the process of using scientific knowledge and modern technology in development. So with improved technology in terms of what we do, it is possible for people's social status to change. For instance, the use of machinery, the use of fertilizer and certified seeds can enable farmers to not only engage in large-scale production, but also engage in agricultural practices that provides higher yields. Greater yields might mean greater returns in terms of income obtained from the sale of the produce. With higher amount of income being realized from farming, farmers are able to access other services and goods that traditionally they were not able to access because of inferior agricultural production or activities. Modernization, therefore, is also a means through which people's social status can change in a much dramatic way. Thank you for listening to me.